Welcome once again to Newark Today on WBGO 88.3 FM and WBGO.org. I'm your host, Michael Hill of NJTV News. We have a lot to tackle tonight. We're talking about Newark Public Schools, and we certainly want to hear from you. We're going to hear from our guests first, though. Honorable Mayor Baraka of Newark is our first guest, and of course, Newark Public Schools Superintendent Roger Leone, a Newark native who's joining the school district as the superintendent. He's at the top of the food chain, some people would say, so we certainly welcome him. This is your first time on the broadcast, is that right?
That's right.
Oh, that's fantastic. I want to tell the folks there listening, we are in the middle of our fall fund drive here at WBGO, and if you want to support this public radio station, you can do so throughout the broadcast by visiting WBGO.org. This is the only station where you can hear programming like Newark Today. Mayor Baraka, tell us your thoughts on the value of this radio station and what it means to you and the entire Newark community, sir.
Well, I grew up listening to WBGO. It's probably the only radio station that played in my house all day long. I probably thought it was the only radio station in existence.
Because of jazz, right?
Yeah, because of jazz and blues all day. You know, my mother and father listened to it regularly. But public radio is important, because it's different than this kind of privately owned big radio that is sponsored by big corporations and big money. This gives the opportunity for the community to actually have a say-so in programming and news and information. So it's important for us to keep public radio around. So if we can do that, we should be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The number to call here, because we certainly want to hear from you and what your thoughts are about Newark Public Schools. The number is 844-677-9283. That's 844-677-9283. You can also tweet us at Newark Today. Now let's get back into the topic at hand. We're talking about education in the state of Newark Public Schools. This is the district's first full school year under local control. Mr. Mayor, what's the difference?
Well, the difference on its face is that we have an elected school board that actually has teeth, have authority to actually govern the district. Parents have a real say-so in what's happening. We have the first superintendent that we have picked since the last 20 years or so, right? So other than that, the state and the bureaucrats in Trenton have more authority than we did in our own city, and now that has changed, and it looks good.
What does it feel like, knowing that Newark is controlling its destinies in terms of its public education?
Well, it's empowering, for the folks in the community, neighborhood, that we feel like we have a real relationship with the school system, with the superintendent, that it's not based on anything political outside of the city of Newark. Just like we don't have to have a discussion with the governor to figure out what's going to happen in our own city, right? And that's important.
What's being done differently this school year, and what role is your administration playing in decisions that are actually being made for and about the school district?
Roger makes all the decisions. This guy here, man, I'm telling you.
I handle that.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we've always had a great relationship. But our administration, unlike other administrations, have, and I think even when Corey was the mayor too, he tried to have a hand in the school district as well. We think is incredibly important for us to have a hand in what's going on in the school system, because we can't move the city forward without making sure our kids are prepared by having quality schools.
Do you have conversations often with Roger Leone?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We have scheduled meetings and meetings that aren't scheduled.
That's right. Absolutely. One of the things that I wanted to say, just in this conversation of, what is it like under local control? It's been 22 years where we've been the state-operated school district of Newark, that the New Jersey Department of Education, the state of New Jersey, has been responsible for not only the superintendents, but all of the instructional programming and supervision and monitoring, oversight. While there's still some of that in every other school district, what's normal is not what we experienced in the last 22 years.
Right.
So local control is not new to the 600 plus school districts in New Jersey. And so it should not be a foreign entity to us. During the past 22 years, we've, all of the superintendents have worked very hard at making sure that the focus on teaching and learning was their top priority, as we know is defined. But the fact that this is now local control isn't like, wow, this is a new experience. No, it isn't. What's not normal is the fact that the school district was not operated by its own entities, and the reasons behind why that occurred are something that we're not going to be repeating now and in the future. Part of our reality is that the state operated the school district for reasons, and we're at a point right now where it's been returned back to us because we're showing all of the signs necessary to be responsible for our own destiny.
So, Roger, essentially, are you saying then that the only difference is going to be that, look, the state was calling some of the shots, now the state is not calling the shots. The instruction in the classroom is still going to be the same?
Well, the instruction in the classroom can't be the same because our student achievement data is suggesting that that's not really good. We have 30% of our students, performing on the state assessment, regardless of what it is. That test data is indicating in the area of English language arts that over 60% of our students are not performing in the area of literacy. In the high schools, we have 15% of our students passing the state test. That means 85% of our students are not doing well on the state test as it relates to mathematics. We do not have 85% of our students in our high schools who do not understand math. So,
in this day and age when STEM is that important, only 15%?
That's right. That's our average in the high schools from last school year. No one on this radio show is going to say that that's acceptable. It's definitely not acceptable to this superintendent. So, we have a lot of work ahead. The whole idea that how you phrase, the state called the shots. No, the people who called the shots were the folks who were running the school district with the oversight over the state. Oversight rather by the state. The state still exists. They are a partner with us. They will continue to be a partner with us. They are partners with other school districts as well. Part of the focus is that we're really responsible ultimately to the voters of the city. That on the election ballot, they're the ones who are determining who runs this system, and as it relates to governing body, that being the Board of Education, and then the Board of Education responsible for who's the superintendent.
We have a call from Tricia from Newark. She has a question for the new super on charter schools. Tricia, thank you for calling the program. What's your question?
My question is actually for the superintendent. Now that you have taken over, we have a local control again, which is, of course, what we've wanted for many years. What's your take now that so many parents, it seems to me that so many parents have been looking to other things like charter schools. So what is your take on the charter schools?
Yeah, so I think that a parent has the right to determine where their child goes to school. I think that it's my responsibility to make sure that every school that is in the city of Newark, and I said every school that's in the city of Newark, is worthy of a child attending it. Whether it's across the street from their house, a mile away, the furthest distance from your home, if that's a school you want your child to attend, I think it's my responsibility as the superintendent of schools to make sure that that school is worthy of receiving your child. As it relates to charter schools specifically, though, I think it's an experiment that we really haven't realized its true potential. The fact that there are children throughout our city in different schools is a reality, and people, their parents, have chosen that fact, and I respect that. I think that where we have not aggressively attempted to realize the experiment is the work that needs to occur, between schools, from schools that I presently govern over, and charter schools, as are specific in your question. There are charter schools that are doing some fantastic work, and it shouldn't be a secret to anyone what they are in fact doing. And I have to say to you, and this sometimes comes off very, very scary, we have incredible schools in the city of Newark, and other people need to actually visit the schools that I currently govern over, because they are doing fantastic work as well. So we have to actually look at the greatness that is occurring across our city, maximize it by having schools visiting each other, and realizing the geniuses that in fact we have attending our respective schools.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get your thoughts on what Roger's saying, what the caller's question was.
Well, that has been my point, that we have to make sure that every school in the city does well. And we have to share best practices, and we have to do that immediately. I mean, those are things that must happen. And we have to figure out this economic issue, that we have around school funding. It's important for us to figure out what the formula is for charters to get money from public schools, if that in fact is working. And we can't leave the schools bankrupt because of a few schools, and they want to expand and expand. And we can't expand schools that are not working either. So if you have a high school and it's not doing well, why should you have the right to expand that? It doesn't even make any sense to me, because then it becomes about your brand and not about the education of the children in the city. So the final thing has to be how we educate young people, what are the things that we're doing to make that happen, and how we get to do it collectively. Right? If we can't do it collectively, then we can't do it at all.
I think one of the important points on that matter is the fact that, you know, the vote, I don't want to say vote, but the voice of the people of the city are extremely important. And part of what I've tried to do since the start of my administration on July 1 is be very, very clear on what's the data indicating. What does the data say? How do we feel about it? And what are our action steps of what we're going to do to make things better? We can't have students in our schools that are not realizing their true potential, and it's my responsibility as the leader of the school district as it relates to education in our schools to be held accountable for that. Some have indicated to be helped accountable for that, and I obviously appreciate DJ for, you know, his guidance with regards to that. That in fact it is about getting the job done, and the job is making sure that the children of the city are educated and educated really, really well, regardless of where they decide to go to school. As it relates to the funding issue, you know, that is a big issue. We need to realize that the dollars come from a certain pot, and there are people who actually want access to it, and ultimately in the end, the people who should have access to it are the ones who are educating our children the best.
We're going to get back to that a little bit later in the show. But we wanted to talk to you, Ms. Leon, about the newly elected school board selected you as the superintendent. Why did you want to be superintendent?
Oh my goodness! So, as you know, I shared before we went on the program. You know, I'm born in the city. I still live in the city. I attended schools in the city. The teachers that I had, from my kindergarten teacher through my teacher in 8th grade, every single one of them every year impacted me profoundly. The principals at both my elementary schools and my high schools did the exact same. My teachers in high school, I received an absolutely incredible education in the city, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of my city. I love my city. So the idea that I would have the responsibility of helping lead instructional programming in our school district, organizing it, creating the system that I know educated me, is an incredible responsibility. And I'm excited that the board thought that this superintendent was actually going to be able to make the changes that we know we need in our schools. So it's something that I've wanted to do. It's something that I've assisted each of the superintendents who have sat in the seats before me, and just incredibly excited about being this district's 21st superintendent after 163 years.
You're listening to, wow, 163 years. You're listening to Newark Today on WBGO. That was Roger Leon, the school superintendent for the Newark Public School System. The number to call is 844-677-9283. Surely you have something to ask him about Newark Public Schools. The mayor is also here as our guest as well. The number is 844-677-9283. Roger, get back to you here. What was the process like? Because this was kind of foreign for the Newark school system for 22 years, choosing its own superintendent.
Oh my goodness, the process was quite extensive. Just the application process itself to actually apply, took a significant amount of time. It was very, very the process of the application piece really forced reflection of my entire history, not only as thoughts about my teachers, but things that I actually did that were a result of the teachers and those who actually impacted me. Then that went through a phase of actual interviews to the final selection day on the 22nd, the evening of May 22nd, which was incredible.
So 5 months ago. So now, what is your relationship like with the school board as the school year gets underway?
Oh my goodness, I think we have an incredible relationship. They are 9 incredible minds that are each independent, yet are working as a cohesive unit. for us, I am proud of every single one of them. It's like a light switch. On February 1st, they became the locally controlled the Board of Education, and it doesn't work that way. So it's a process that takes time. I've never been a superintendent before. I started on July 1, and we're excited for the work ahead.
Mr. Mayor, what was your input to this process as the board was going through choosing a new superintendent? Did you have any input, giving any advice?
Well, I mean, from my advice was simply that we needed to get somebody who lived in Newark, who was from Newark at least, and had experience in our community and the things that we were going through right now. And it just didn't make sense to fight for local control for over 20 years and then give it away again. We thought that we should have someone, that was based from our city, that had roots here, and that was important for me. And that was the message that I sent to everyone, as they went through the process.
Right now, as you sit here now, do people need to be reminded that there's no longer state control, and that what the relationship should look like between the superintendent and the board, since this is a locally elected board?
Oh, absolutely. Part of the process of I'm at the footsteps of finishing our strategic plan. It's an actual 1-year strategic plan called NPS, Newark Public Schools Clarity 2020. Part of what has to occur in this phase before we get into the next decade is an understanding of the work that has occurred over the last 22 years, prior to that, during, and actually the work ahead. So making it clear to everyone what it is that we need to do will only be beneficial to the students in our school district if we actually understand what has in fact happened. This November election is very, very important because there is a referendum ballot question that the citizens, because we have returned to local control since February 1, within the year's time, the citizens of Newark would be responsible for answering a very important fundamental question, and that is the type of board that the school district would have, whether it's a type 1 board or type 2.
So then people are having to understand that, look, that we own this, we control this, and here's how we're going to proceed. This is ours.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm one who's coming from a perspective, even though it's been 22 years of a state-operated school district, that we shouldn't be blaming anyone for the realities of whatever is plaguing us today. It's very easy to say, well, it's the state's fault. Ultimately, in the end, we are responsible for educating children, and now there is no one else to blame but ourselves.
Roger Leone, Newark School Superintendent, Mayor Baraka. What do you have to say on the state of Newark Public Schools? We want you to call the number. It's 844-677-9283, or you can tweet us at Newark Today. A lot going on. Education is on the menu this evening, and nutrition and learning, of course, go hand in hand. Children excel in school when they're well nourished. Mr. Mayor, on Tuesday, you took part in that effort right here in Newark. Tell us about what you were doing.
We were at a ShopRite, bagging bags for hunger. ShopRite, Wakefern, General Mills gives money around, making sure that kids are not hungry, that they actually have food. So we were at the supermarket bagging bags, and I was back in my old days, like I used to do at A&P. There's no more A&Ps on Clinton Avenue bagging bags. This time I wasn't getting any money for it. But everybody that went through our aisle, 50% of what they paid went towards feeding hungry children and families.
Yesterday, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yesterday, as part of the Fall Pledge Drive, WBGO had its annual Community Food Bank of New Jersey Day, where we partnered with Stop and Shop, as the mayor said, and thanks to the generosity of the members of WBGO, more than 500 families will receive a family pack filled with healthy food to supplement families at risk of going hungry over the weekend. Thanks to all the members for supporting the community and supporting WBGO. You are listening to Newark Today on WBGO. What do you have to say about the state of Newark Public Schools? The number to call here on Newark Today on WBGO 88.3 FM and WBGO.org is 844-677-9283, or you can tweet us at Newark Today. Elaine is on the line right now talking about sports and Newark Public Schools. Hi, Elaine. What's your question?
Hi there. Hi, hello, Mr. Leon, and good evening, Mayor. I've heard great things about you, Mr. Leon, and about what you plan to do for the schools. And I've read great things about you as well, and I'm excited about what you can do for the community and the way you'll benefit the district. And I'm wondering if you guys will consider, and you know what I'm going to say, I think, creating a role, a full-time role to further develop and expand on the program of lacrosse. We've only got one school that has a team, and that's run by Coach John Dudley. He's an expert, and he coaches over at Eastside.
Yeah, he's
he
great.
also runs a summer camp program supported by the Falk Lacrosse Organization, which is a nonprofit. But it would be great if Newark could expand the program, and so there'll be more than one school, because the benefit of playing sports is tremendous for kids. They just need to know how to play before they get to high school.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for your compliments. We'll try to make you and everyone proud of the work that we're going to do ahead. So 21st century athletics are, in fact, extremely important. You know, we actually have to let everyone in New Jersey know that whatever activity is occurring in their respective school districts, that Newark is in. And so lacrosse is definitely one of those areas. The fact that we are actually doing this at one school is in fact incredible for the folks at that school. It is something and an area that we definitely will be expanding in throughout our city. I think one of the other important points that you made, and I am grateful that you made it, is that we can't wait until a student gets into ninth grade to see and tap into their interests. So, you know, doing this earlier than the ninth grade, exposing our students to as much of what opportunities are actually before them are great, with the understanding that, you know, when we get into specific sports, there's an expense and it's quite expensive. You know, we'll need to make sure that we're allocating properly, making sure that, you know, our guys are given the incredible opportunity of demonstrating their genius on every possible field and court that exists, but also opening up those opportunities for our young ladies. Our young ladies need to have all of the exposure of all of the sports as equal, if not less than all of our guys as well. So it's an opportunity opening up throughout our city for both guys and girls.
Mr. Mayor, do a lot of people play lacrosse in the city of Newark?
Well, I haven't seen a lot of people playing lacrosse. I met the great guys at Eastside, the lacrosse team. We were doing a groundbreaking for the new Ironbound A Stadium that we're going to open up down there, and they were very, very eager to practice on that field. So, I mean, if the rest of the city folks can look like those guys, then we need to expand the game. Those guys were very well, mannered, and they were physically fit at that.
I think it's a different question, though. You know, and
I'm sorry.
although I've seen you a lot, and I appreciate your reporting, and definitely would love to be invited again. I think that are a lot of kids in Newark playing lacrosse? That's not the right question. The right question is, why were all of the people who played lacrosse not given the opportunity of being defeated by someone from Newark? I think that's the right question.
Okay.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
That's a great question. I know it's a big sport at places like University of Maryland and
Sure.
some of the other schools down there where they
Absolutely.
teams in that region seem to win national championships all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole idea of the fact that it's a sport, and we know the benefits that sports provides our students is one undeniable, but it opens a door to someone going into college. Playing professionally obviously is something that all of the students who are entering into sports aspire to. But if in fact playing lacrosse is going to get a kid into college, we're going to play lacrosse.
It doesn't look like, though, it will entail much in the way of expenditures for sports. It's not like you need a football helmet, jerseys, football pads, and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
As football or baseball?
I think that on the one end, all of the major contact sports that exist, obviously that there are expenses there that aren't attributed to it, but it's not just getting guys some shorts. getting some lady, a racket. There's
So
a little bit more than that.
I'm curious. East Side right now is the only school that has a lacrosse
That's
team.
right.
So who did they play? Who did they compete
Well,
with?
there's a conference, so all of our students there are different types of conferences.
Okay.
So obviously within the city of Newark, there are conferences.
Okay.
There are none that they
All right.
compete in with regards to that because they're the only school they are. But there's a conference, NJSIAA, throughout the state of New Jersey where our students compete.
So they play other teams outside the city of Newark.
Sure.
Okay. How do they do? Are they competitive?
One of the things that is the reality of the conferences as they exist right now is that the more that we get students exposed to earlier, we know that they do far better. So however they are performing at this point in time, we know that only with time they will get better.
So you get them into grade school then?
Yep.
You're listening to Newark Today on WBGO. The call-in number, 844-677-9283. The question we've been asking since the beginning of the show, what do you have to say about the state of Newark Public Schools? And Monty is on the line right now from Woodridge, which is a question about the curriculum for one of our guests. Monty, thank you. What's your question?
Mr. Mayor, Superintendent, what you're describing in Newark is commendable and nothing short of a miracle. I'm really happy to hear that. I think since I was driving, I perhaps missed part of what you were explaining, and I was wondering how independent are you from the state curriculum? Can you set your own? Can you maneuver it to fit the needs of the students of Newark?
Yeah, so absolutely. That was true. Even under a state operation, the state of New Jersey wasn't saying to us, "Hey, you have to pick a particular curriculum." The whole idea of the supervision of it, I guess, gets somewhat exaggerated over time. It's the reality today is not different from before. So the selection of curriculum goes through a process. We have a instruction and program curriculum committee that will in fact be responsible for all of the decisions as we provide recommendations to them, and then the board votes on as a whole. So they have all of the rights that exist as it relates to the operational functioning of our school district as it relates to like curriculum selection, things of that nature.
Thank you, ma'am. Superintendent Leon, you said that you want to be an agent of change within the school district, and you have kept some of the district's previous and most controversial policies, including Newark Enrolls that was implemented by Cammie Anderson. What do you mean by an agent of change, and why keep this policy if you're an agent of change?
Sure. So part of the reality, well, two things. So we'll do agent of change first, and
yes,
then we'll deal with Newark Enrolls. So part of what my responsibility is to make sure that everyone understands what it is that we need to do and why we need to do it differently. We can't do everything differently because we understand that doing something differently doesn't necessarily make it better. So it's understanding where we are and then making changes as we need them to improve. I already shared with you the performance data as it relates to state assessment. I already shared to everyone since the my start, the attendance data, which is very much lagging behind our counterparts throughout the state. So part of the change agent piece is to actually move the work. We are a little tired in the city for people thinking that we are always second, third, 8th, 9th, 25th as it relates to everybody else. So part of our work is to distinguish ourselves by suggesting that everything that we do is to do it right, be excellent, and be number one. In order to do that, there's a lot of work that needs to obviously happen. As it relates to Newark Enrolls, I get that there is a controversy with it, but part of the controversy is what is it? So initially, it began with one Newark.
Right.
So it has transformed and changed over time. This school district never had one uniform policy on how a student enrolls in our respective schools. We had every single school throughout the entire city of Newark having its own different enrollment process. We had, if you may recall, years ago, about 7 years ago, children and their parents lined up in tents outside of our schools waiting to get in because the school only had 60 seats or 80 seats. And so the parents knew that they needed to sleep outside of the school overnight because the 81st parent was not going to get in. There's nothing fair about that. So the fact that it opens up this opportunity for students to choose a good school is not something that should be scary. What should be scary is that there is not a good school every sector of the city. The whole debate over the process has ignored the reality that we have schools that are not helping our students be better. So I can have and hear and will take people say, the enrollment system is wrong. No, you know what's wrong? The fact that people are not understanding that schools in the city are not helping our students become better. So my responsibility is to make sure that every school becomes an option for our students to become better. Throughout that whole time period has been also the controversy of closing schools. That is not on my agenda. Part of the work that I know that is before me is to reinstill a state of awareness as to the greatness of what will happen if a child attends a school in Newark. We'll be opening up some new schools, not closing them, but also we'll be holding schools accountable if they're not actually meeting the needs of our students. The enrollment system is irrelevant to schools not doing well.
Mr. Mayor, I know when the system had One Newark that your office was getting a lot of phone calls. Do you still get phone calls about the enrollment process?
Yeah, but not as much as we were getting years ago. I mean, that has subsided, a great deal. I mean, and one thing the superintendent's saying is absolutely correct. The district is just simply not the same. Obviously, there are some schools that don't even exist, that used to exist, where people could do neighborhood community enrollment. They don't have any neighborhood school anymore because they were either converted into a charter school or just shut down. I think part of that controversy was the fact that all of these things were happening without any say-so from the residents, and that's why local control becomes more important. They were doing these things, closing schools, converting them to charters, selling schools, creating an enrollment system, really without the input of the community, and didn't care what the community felt, and they were doing it. And so it wasn't just the process of enrollment, it was also coupled with the fact that schools were closing, that charters were taking over schools, so all of these things were happening. In that light, and so the brand of One Newark became horrible. And that has transformed there, and so there needs to be an opportunity for us to have a system where we enroll students, but we're not enrolling them where we're sending all the good kids to one school, and or all the kids that are top performing, I should say, and not good kids to one school, and everybody else to the other school, to other schools, or we're pulling people out of schools purposefully. We're allowing schools to fail and pulling people from those schools and sending them to other schools. So those things can't happen. And I don't think that the superintendent supports any of that, and is going to do what he can to make sure our kids are able to go to what he said, that all schools that they choose are good schools.
Yeah, I want to just be clear. Like, yes. I don't live in La La Land. There are problems with the system as it exists. I get it. I understand it. Part of what I've been doing is studying what has been occurring when I go to the enrollment center, and I've had the opportunity of doing that on more than one occasion, and talking with parents directly myself and assisting them through the process. It's very, very important that we understand that it is the right of a parent to choose what school they should attend. And our responsibility is just to create a system that provides a fair opportunity where they can actually accomplish that goal. My goal would be to get every student into the school that a parent wants their child to attend, not their 8th choice, not their 7th choice, but their first choice.
Well, this is your first year as the superintendent for the enrollment. And what are you hearing, though? What have you heard from parents about Newark Enrolls as it stands right now for this school year? What do people say? Did you get any feedback?
Well, obviously, the Newark Enrolls process didn't start right now.
Right.
So the students who were enrolled for this school year, that process occurred last year. Yeah. So it began around mid-December and ended sometime in like the latter part of February. And then people received notifications as to what were their matches somewhere around April or so. So, the whole idea, are people satisfied with where they are attending? Well, no one intended to perhaps select their eighth school and pick that as their best option. So obviously, there's a demand that we have with regards to schools that are high performing and not having the actual number of seats available to have them attend there. So that's a reality. That is one of the issues. However, the whole idea as to my administration as of July 1, every parent who has come in contact with me, they wanted to go to a particular school, that's where they were going.
Ms. Liam, I got a quick question here. This is Sal on the line. Sal, what's your question?
Okay. Roger, I just want to say I'm so glad that you're our superintendent, because finally, from Marion Bolden to you, we have somebody that really understands, I think, what the school system's about. I was a teacher. I was a student at Barringer High School, and then became a student for many years also. And my question is, well, we go to Barringer as a part of the Alumni Association on Thursdays, and students come in, and we show them what we have at the school. They know nothing about the history. I think that's the way it is with every school in Newark. They know nothing about the history of the Newark school system.
What's your question, sir?
My question is there some way of incorporating the history of the schools into their curriculum somehow?
Absolutely. First of all, this man is just a great man. Sal was not only a student at Barringer High School, he became one of our best teachers. He's been responsible in part
with Southeast Orlando?
Yes, absolutely. And I was trying to not do his government name, but the whole idea that he is speaking something that is extremely powerful, this entire archive of the past. See, what I'm not afraid of is the past. So to my friend Sal, Dr. Bolden, and the whole entire crew, of part of the history of our city will be realized because of the incredible work that he has done, and with his alumni association members at Barringer High School, and in fact the alumni associations across our city. I'd be in trouble if I didn't say them. Weequake and my people at Shabazz High School, Central High School, West Side. I give them all love, especially East Side, West Side, yes, all the others, Central too.
Roger, you got to take a break here. Studies show that an appreciation for music can have an impact and improve the learning process. Mary, you grew up in a music-inspired, music-filled household and later became an educator. So I'm guessing this is a subject close to you. Tell us how music had an impact on you and your family, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I mean, art, period, has an important kind of place to play in education, period. I mean, at the end of the day, just being able to listen to all kinds of music and being able to learn the cultural backgrounds of different things that different artists and musicians, and the history of music also determine the history of our community and the history of black folks in this country. And so we've always learned history, real civic and political history, through music and art. And I think it's an opportunity to do the same for all cultural kind of things in the city, all backgrounds, and give us an opportunity to move our city in a direction where people not only love their own culture, love their own history, but understand it as well, and how it plays into them knowing who each other are, and knowing where the city is and where it was and where it can go. I think it's incredibly important for us to make sure that art and music and culture is deeply embedded in the educational process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. WBGO has introduced children of all ages in Essex County to jazz over the last 20 years. Through our Kids Jazz program, thousands of children have experienced these concerts that lay the foundation, as you heard, for stronger learning habits in the future. Thanks to all our members for supporting those efforts throughout the community and for supporting WBGO. You are listening to Newark Today on WBGO. Welcome back to Newark Today once again on WBGO. The number to call here to answer this question: what do you have to say about Newark education in Newark Public Schools? The number is 844-677-9283. Mayor Baraka is our guest, along with Superintendent Roger Leon. The state recently implemented a new school funding formula. Under the new law, Newark will receive $787 million in this school year. That's an increase of $37 million, or 5% over what the district received last year. What does this mean for Newark Public Schools, especially after having been underfunded for so long? Roger?
Well, we are appreciative of receiving the amount of money.
But what I'm hearing in your tone is maybe it's not enough.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
I'm appreciative of the money that we have received. There's a delta, though. And if my responsibility is to fund all of the schools, and I get when people are saying, you don't it's not your money, it's other people's money. Well, ultimately, when we look at the funding formula, the dollars need to actually go to the locations, in particular this city, appropriately so. And so I know that the commissioner is working really, really hard at looking at the funding formula, providing recommendations to provide guidance so that the dollars actually get to the places that need them and need them the most. I also get the accountability piece that comes with it. So I do agree that, dollars need to actually be spent and spent wisely.
Any of the money going to charter schools? Does it have to go to charter school?
Yeah, there's a formula as to that money and how it gets divided across the types of schools that are in Newark. So yes.
Mr. Mayor, is that enough money? Enough of an increase? We're talking about 5% given the needs of a district like Newark?
Well, if we were being fully funded by Abbott, we'd get probably close to $200 million more dollars. So that's probably what the gap is at this point in terms of where we are and where we are in terms of Abbott.
140.
Right. So at the end of the day, I mean, like the superintendent said, we appreciate any increase. God knows we need it, but we're not where we need to be in terms of the full funding of the formula.
So how do you correct this? How does a state like New Jersey correct this? New Jersey is a highly educated place. It's highly taxed as well. There are people scrambling in the last legislative session for money left and right. A big battle over school funding and things like that. So how does this get resolved? How do you operate a school system knowing that you're $140 million short and you have these needs and you have all these children? Well, it's the largest school district in the state.
Absolutely, it's the largest school district in the state. But one of the ways that we get closer to receiving the due is what's actually occurring right now. The advocates that we have for our city are absolutely incredible in Trenton, and we're really appreciative of the advocacy that they're actually doing for us. Without their assistance, without their voice, we actually would be in more dire straits right now than what we are. Part of also the responsibility that I have is to make sure that we've right-sized the district as well. So our enrollment has been decreasing, our staff has kind of remained the same, and ultimately in the end, some really important decisions are going to be made. The right sizing of the money, and everyone who thinks, Newark needs more money, Newark actually has to also learn how to utilize that money.
Now, have you already made some staffing adjustments, cuts already?
So there have been an organizational change that I made at the start of the year. I'm not satisfied with the way our organization is currently running. The last thing that I needed to do is, in this quest to be provide clarity, is to also provide confusion. So major changes will occur for the following school year and when we actually get into that budget.
Mr. Mayor, what's the long-term forecast of this when districts like Newark and others throughout the state are clamoring for money and they're getting only a 5% increase in funding? The cost is not going down to educate children.
First, I just want to say, we're going to have to pay, and Martin Luther King said it, if we don't pay it on the front end, we're going to be paying it on the back end. So this whole argument about, should we give you more money? Well, you're spending it anyway. You're spending it in $200,000 per child in incarceration costs. You're spending it in welfare costs. You're spending it in trying to find public housing. You're spending that money anyway. So it just doesn't make sense for people to refuse to spend it on education but want to spend it on all these other things. But I just think the state of New Jersey has too many school districts. That's number one. There's just too many school districts. You have some school districts that don't even have high schools. You have school districts that have one school, right, and a superintendent and all these other kind of things. I think this is ridiculous. And I think that those things need to change and that we have to begin to combine some of these things. The school district in New Jersey is probably the fourth most segregated school district in the nation, right? So they're segregated by both race and class. Those things need to be fixed.
And highly educated,
right? Blue
state.
Absolutely. We're really blue on paper. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's important, that we begin to look at these hard issues of how schools are being funded. And I think the governor talks about that. He talked about in his campaign, he talked about fully funding Abbott. In order to fully fund Abbott, you're going to have to do something with the rest of these districts, right? And, with taxes and all kinds of other things that folks aren't ready to do yet.
One of the things that's extremely important, and Mayor is absolutely correct, that ultimately people think that in our city, all that our teachers do is teach, whatever is the set curriculum. They do far beyond that. The resources that we need to create a level playing field are beyond just funding enough teachers to teach our students. It's not about class size. It's also about the needs that our students actually have. A mental health crisis, for example, is something real. We need experts in our schools to provide assistance and support and create preventive measures. We're really, really good at saying there's a crisis and then all of the resources are afforded to a particular school or to a particular family or a child. But ultimately, in the end, what we have to really do is prevent some of these events from, in fact, occurring crises that we actually have, and that requires dollars.
I'm curious, Mr. Mayor, you talked about too many school districts in the state, and I think this is a constant theme in Trenton, along with too many municipalities as well.
Right.
Has Newark approached any district that's close by to say, let's consolidate, why don't you merge with us so we can lower the costs and so forth? Any discussions like that?
No, I know in terms of the city, we approach other people about sharing services. I think Newark has the ability to do that, whether you're talking about healthcare costs or purchasing equipment or other kinds of things of that nature. And I think we should be doing that. But we're already a large district. You're talking about over 40,000 kids. There are districts with 150 children, and so it's important for us to talk about those districts combining themselves, as opposed to like putting a greater burden on the city of Newark. Though I think there's opportunity to share services with our neighbors that are around here, and most of our neighboring districts are mid-size kind of districts.
I take a different approach to a bigger strategy. There are school districts in particular that are utilizing certain strategies that we need to visit and study and actually partake in some of the things that they're doing. Respective school districts that are high performing and affluent are school districts that I think will help us greatly. I think that there are some incredible things that we're doing that school districts throughout the state will also benefit from.
The number to call here in WBGO is 844-677-9283 as we listen to School Superintendent Roger Leon and Mayor Baraka of Newark. When you talk about, Mr. Mayor, a school district where maybe there's 150 students, I'm sure it's in a small or rural part of the state where you have to have buses taking kids back and forth to school. I would imagine in a situation like that, the cost per child in that district must be much higher than in a place like Newark.
I mean, it absolutely has to be, because all of the services and administrative costs that it takes to be able to. That's why the state spends $200,000 per child in terms of incarceration, because some of the superintendent said earlier, as the numbers decrease, you don't right size the employees, and so we're spending a lot of money on those things, and we have not found out how to redirect those services. And I think it's important for districts like that to combine. I think New Jersey just have this home rule thing that has bloated the cost around every piece of everything that we're talking about here, and we really, really have to revisit it.
When you say city shared services with others, can you give us an idea of who you're talking about? Perhaps some other cities that may be close by you consider sharing services?
I mean, we talk about this. Mayors talk about it. I mean, whether you talk about insurance costs or sharing all of the employees under one kind of insurance piece, in order to when you expand it, you make your costs lower. We can share. We could go into co-ops and begin to buy equipment, whether you're talking about trucks or police cars or radios, to drive costs down. There are all kind of equipment and material costs that we can reduce if we do it collectively and do some of these things together. Even busing services as well. So we have to begin to be creative about those things, since the pot is getting smaller and smaller, thinner and thinner.
And are these ongoing discussions with some of the other
Sure,
cities?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And any agreement so far?
Well, Jersey City, Newark, we agreed on a few things. I mean, Mayor Voss has called us all up to Irvington at one point to, have us talk about all of the neighboring cities, talk about how we share service on very things that I talked about. We are now, our business administrator is contacting other folks to try to see what we can do around healthcare. So those are very important things that we're willing to go at it.
That would be quite a hurdle if you can do it with healthcare. It reduce cost tremendously.
Yeah.
Roger, get back to the school district here, and with the influx of cash, what will that allow you to do? More guidance counselors? Because I think people are talking about guidance counselors for the school district. Does the district need more guidance counselors?
I think that the area of support services is definitely one area of focus. The area that has helped us tremendously in the past that we have in fact reinstated are our attendance counselors, who in fact will be critical towards not assuming the sole responsibility of making sure our students are to school in time, but working with all of the people who are very concerned with kids being in school. So we have staff members who are concerned and have been concerned daily for years about students being in school, but we are actually having attendance counselors, take that challenge on. Mental health crisis is real, so definitely health and social services type of coordinators are the type of folks that we actually need. We obviously have vacancies currently in some hard to fill positions in the area of bilingual, area of special education, area of mathematics. So we need talent in our school district. We have talent, but we have vacancies and room where we need more people who are interested in educating some of the greatest geniuses that our state actually has. And
these are positions that are advertised, of course.
Yep, definitely. All they have to do is go on the district's web, look under job opportunities, and we're right there. teachnewark.org is another place where they can actually assist us.
And are you looking for folks who are fresh out of school, or folks who have a few years experience? What would you say?
Yeah, so the first criteria that we are looking for is somebody who's great. So if you are just out of college and you are great, we need you. If you have been teaching in another school district and you are great, we need you. We don't need you if you're good. I have enough good people. I need great people come to our city to help educate our children.
I would say that the mayor, you're looking for the same thing in the city of Newark, perhaps?
Absolutely, man. We need some great people.
I'm going to have to remember that. Not good, but great.
Yeah. It's a book, From Good to Great.
It is. It really is.
That's right.
What about attendance rates for Newark public school students at this point?
Oh my goodness, that's a serious problem for us. Last year's attendance is like, I call it a purple category, which was about 86% district-wide. We need our students to school every day and on time, so our campaign is 100% attendance in our school district. I need students to school every single day. We had a big campaign along the lines where every single one of my 6,000 plus staff members called 5 students. I had staff give me 5 and staff gave me 5, and our students were coming to school. We have over 90% attendance during the first 10 days, and I'm excited about that.
I got to get to this phone call. Maria, go ahead. What's your question, please?
Hello?
Yes, Maria. What's your question, please?
I'm a student of Baraka High School. There's a problem with counselors there because there's a lot of students.
So what's your question?
And my school, there is a big problem because there is a lot of students produced by counselors, and they don't assist me when I go there. They took me out.
And what school is this?
Barringer.
Barringer. Okay.
Yeah, so Barringer High School, one of the things that we did, Barringer High School is the home of the Blue Bear.
Yes.
And we, in the last couple of years, created 2 schools within that location. So we created half bears. And so part of the work that we did beginning on July 1 was actually try to put that bear back together again. The principal that's there, Ms. Mincy, is doing an absolutely incredible job. This young lady should actually go to the principal and make sure that whatever are the counseling problems that she's having, that they're addressed, and Ms. Mincy will make sure that she does that. I was actually there this week. I saw awesome students doing some awesome work with teachers who care about them.
Newark School Superintendent Roger Leone, Mayor Baraka of Newark. I'm your host, Michael Hill. You've been listening to Newark Today. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to staff, Ang Santos on the phones, Corey Goldberg, operations, Alexandra Hill, producer, Doug Doyle, executive producer. This is WBGO Newark.